Welcome back to Squeezing the Plums. My name is Stephen Singh. Now, currently, we do not have any sponsors, so a little bit of help from you would be wonderful. Before you listen to this episode, if you can press the subscribe button and we can boost those numbers up, it'd be great to keep this channel running. Now, this topic of conversation today is FOMO. Now, fear of missing out is something we all go through, me especially. When it comes to friends going away and doing things and you being there and going, oh, wow, geez, I'd love to be a part of that. Oh, I don't want to miss out. Oh, I should really book the flights. Oh, no, I've got responsibilities. Type of FOMO is very normal. However, upon reflection, and I'm doing some dilemmas in the next couple of weeks coming out on my social media, it's really apparent that a lot of blokes struggle with the concept and the idea that they can't be where they want to be at any given point in time. FOMO has a direct correlation with lack of sleep, anxiousness, depression, you name it. They did a recent study in Glasgow, over 3,000 people, and they found that over 70% of the people that had downloaded social media videos for an extensive period of time over every single given day was significantly more at risk to, one, all those subjective conditions that I've just said before, and two, that was tied directly through to FOMO. Yes, you heard it. They've done research and literature on FOMO. Started back in 2013, and they have been researching it ever since. Something that only came to my mind recently. But in this actual podcast, we are going to break down what is bad FOMO, what is the FOMO that we need to be watching out for. As I normally do, I like to break things down in the most simplest form possible. So I've broken down FOMO into 3 different types of people. And I reckon out of all of your friends, probably including yourself, you will know a person that fits into this characteristic. Now, this can be really helpful for you because once you know the characteristics of someone actually suffering from regular FOMO, not the type of FOMO I explained earlier on, you'll be able to figure out how to best deal with that, including if it's yourself. Now, back in the day when I was working in clubs and bars, and I always refer back to this because there's so much I learned in the hospitality industry. But, you would go in, you get paid when you're working there to host, have fun, drink, party, and you would, even if you didn't want to go, you kind of suck it up because the money was good. You'd be able to meet some people, maybe speak to a few girls, make some money, bring in your mates whenever you want. That was all good. But I think we all know someone that has gone to the same nightclub every single weekend of every single month of every single year, especially in the Melbourne scene. I reckon I've seen it heaps. And so one of the things that is quite evident when I left the hospitality scene was me questioning myself, why is it did these people come every single weekend, despite the fact it was the same DJ, the same crowd? Like, did they not have anything better to do? And then I realized that these people were suffering from FOMO, fear of missing out. And it wasn't because they were fear of missing out of having fun. It was the idea that them not being there meant that they kept out of a social circle. They felt isolated, lonely. All these other things started to come into play. And then they had a warped idea of what fun was. But fun wasn't being creative. Fun was just not missing out. And when that becomes a problem for people, they will do all sorts of things to cure that itch. Now, like I said, I divided FOMO into 3 different personality types so that it's easy to understand the different types of people that go through FOMO and what kind of people are they. So I've broken it down into 3 different types of people: Sam Shady, Buffet Bill, and Desperate Dave. And I will get to each one of them because the characteristics that make up each one of these people might be someone that you know. So Sam Shady, let's explain Sam as the person that you go to the cafe with, you sit down with, you're having a nice chat, and then he can't help but check his phone. And on the phone, he's constantly looking and scrolling and trying to find out what other people are up to, where they're eating brekkie, where they're going out, what's happening, everywhere else but where he is right now. Call that chasing the fix. Now, if you're chasing the fix, you have been absolutely fried by FOMO because you cannot enjoy where you are at the moment and the grass is greener on the other side type of mentality has really crept into that person's psyche. Now, if he's struggling with this, you might be able to then quickly pick up on it and start to bring things out to his attention. Some things like, hey, mate, is there somewhere you'd rather be? Or, I'm happy to catch up with you next week if you're busy right now. Just a couple little things to go, switching back into gear. Secondly, there is Buffet Bill. Now, I explain Buffet Bill as a bloke that goes and gets every single bit of food, whether he likes it or not, and puts it on his plate. That's the exact same as the FOMO personality of someone that is an overcommitter to every single social event. They can't say no. And that's because even if they don't have the time or energy or willingness to participate, the idea that they're missing out of social connection, that they may be left out of a group, that comes from a really wounded place. And so Buffet Bill is the type of bloke that will try to appease everyone, but also he'll try to do it all because he doesn't want to be left out. And that fear of missing out heavily correlates to a deep wound that he's been carrying around with him, and he probably doesn't even know it. Now, the final guy is Desperate Dave, and Desperate Dave's an interesting guy because he's the guy that's always after the new high. He's always after the new car, the new watch, the new phone, and he needs to get it and attain it, because if he doesn't get it first and someone else gets it, he worries that they're going to experience something more unique than what he's going to experience. He has a completely warped perception of what it is to be able to have something. Now, out of all those three types, Sam Shady, Buffet Bill, and Desperate Dave, all those three guys experience these key symptoms: anxiousness, poor sleep, dissatisfaction with their lives, feeling excluded and isolated and not accomplished. This is all something that checks out against research. And if you find yourself in that category, you should definitely check yourself, because here are some things and habits that you can utilize to get through it. And before I get into it, these two things are things that I researched pretty heavily. And I was surprised when I was researching it how much information on FOMO there actually was. Like, since 2013, psychologists have been talking about FOMO, especially as it relates to social media, extensively. And so the two strategies that I got to assist with FOMO are actually things that you and I can probably use, even if our FOMO isn't too bad. So let's hear it out. The first one was done by, I call it the P study, because the person that wrote the study, his name or her name is not even pronounceable. It's like Przybilski. Anyways, I'll put that in the show notes. You can try and pronounce it too. Good luck. And one of the things they mentioned was planning your fun times as a strategy to deal with FOMO. If you plan your fun times, this does two things. It does one, it determines what you think fun is. It's not what other people think fun is, it's what you think fun is. And so as a result, when you check social media and you see that person booking the holiday to go overseas and have that great trip, you don't have the fear of missing out because you've organized for yourself what you deem fun is. Now, that might be for the week ahead. You might even go, look, I need to plan it for the month or the year. Regardless, if you plan, you have a greater success rate of being, one, able to achieve what you want to do, and two, recognize what you determine is fun. Now, that doesn't mean if you see someone doing something else that you can't try that thing, because there is sometimes an idea or curiosity that, oh, I would love to go and do what they're doing. But the idea that you have a disproportionate amount of fear of missing out because you're not doing what they're doing is just something that will create all those symptoms that we spoke about previously: anxiousness, poor sleep, dissatisfaction, excluded, isolation, and not accomplished. Strategy 2 was by a guy called Dr. Robert Emmons, and he did a study with 192 participants. Now, just before I get into that study, this guy is probably one of the leading psychologists and researchers for gratitude. So this study was on gratitude. And what he did was he divided those 192 participants into three groups. One group would write down at the end of the day what they were grateful for. One group would write down at the end of the day what happened. And one group at the end of the day would write down what they disliked about their day. Now, It's obvious what the result is going to be. But I just want you to think for a second and go, although it's obvious, are we currently doing it? Could we be more optimum in the way that we feel? Because in the results, there was 25% increase in happiness for the first group, 16% reduction in physical symptoms like headaches and fatigue, 30 minutes more sleep a night, which I tell you what, I don't know about you, but that would mean a world to me. 23% lower cortisol levels, and participants who wrote down what they are happy and grateful for were 40% more likely to exercise than the other groups. Now, with all this being said and done, it's pretty easy to see why FOMO can fry your brain, because if you are always living in a place that is not where you are right now, you've got no plans to be able to incorporate fun into your life, and you have no strategy to be grateful for where you are right now, you will be one of those people, Dave, Sam, or Bill, that will find yourself in this negative feedback loop in between your ears. So start by a couple of those strategies. Now, before we wrap up, just a quick reminder, if you enjoyed this episode and any of my previous episodes, please press that subscribe button. And here's a little quote to finish. The fear of missing out fades when you start building a life you're proud of. Thanks for tuning in.